Go.
Here's how to read a label of any product that you have behind your bar. Well, today we're going to concern ourselves with whiskey. Now, what is whiskey? It's a spirit that's distilled from grain, aged in wood, and has the flavor and characteristics of whiskey. So what does that mean? Well, the U.S. government wasn't very good with that one. So whiskeys come from all over the world. We got Scotch whiskey, Irish whiskey, Canadian whiskey, American blended whiskey, and the only native spirit of America, bourbon whiskey. Now, for bourbon whiskey, it must be made in the USA. It must come from a mash bill or a grain mixture of a minimum of 51% corn. It can be distilled no higher than 160 proof. This is going to ensure that we retain that characteristic of the grain. It can go into a barrel no higher than 125 proof. That barrel must be new charred oak, and you can add nothing else to that other than water to bring it down to bottle proof. Minimum bottle proof is 80 proof, or 40% of alcohol by volume. Now, knowing these laws, we can look at the label of a bottle of whiskey and tell us exactly what it is. And here we see Kentucky Straight Bourbon Whiskey. Okay, let's go all the way to the end of that, and we look at this word here that says whiskey. By that, we know that it's distilled from grain. When it says bourbon whiskey, we know by law it's been aged in new charred oak. It's made from a minimum of 51% corn, and it is made in the United States. When it says straight whiskey by law must be aged for 2 years in wood. When it says Kentucky Straight Whiskey, it is aged for 2 years by law in said state, this one being Kentucky. So if we read this entire label, Kentucky Straight Bourbon Whiskey, we know that we're having a whiskey that is at least 2 years old, made in Kentucky, from corn, from grain, in a new charred oak barrel. We also see here on the words, we see sour mash, which is a process that's used in all bourbon whiskeys. And we don't see an age statement. So because of that, we know because of the laws of bourbon, it's aged for at least 4 years. And that is Jim Beam White Label, 80 proof, 4 years old, made in Kentucky.